Hey, this is Nicholas with the Backyard TARDIS here with some more Backyard TARDIS Random Thoughts podcast. This time we're going to have three topics, kind of big changes, somber topics that I've been wanting to talk to, and just kind of shocking, interesting news. So we're going to talk about Russell T. Davies coming back to Doctor Who, the Mario voice cast, and then Craig Skits retiring from the video game realm. And maybe some of that you don't know that's the big deal about, so I'll talk about that. I'll start off, do Doctor Who. You can't see it, but I'm actually wearing my Star Wars Doctor Who crossover shirt. Cyberman and a Dalek looking like C-3PO and R2-D2. But, so to say the least, I am a huge Doctor Who fan. However, recently we had the Doctor Who latest era. So, from the reboot era, we had Russell T. Davies, and then we had Stephen Moffat, and then most recently we've had Chris Chibnall as showrunner. And as with a lot of Hollywood, Chris Chibnall has come under a lot of fire for some of his messaging. And to kind of give you my initial perspective, I'm going to say this. I didn't have a problem with the Doctor being a woman. Did I think the Doctor needed to be a woman? No. But I didn't have a problem with it. I was willing to give it a shot. They definitely won me over with the Master being a woman. So I was open to it, and I thought it could be done well. I think Chris Chibnall made a lot of mistakes. Chiefly, I think he got rid of virtually the writing staff. When Moffat took over, a lot of people who worked with Russell T. Davies stayed with the show as far as writers. Now, of course, Russell T. Davies works with the Bad Wolf Studio, and of course, a lot of those special effects people, those people, I don't know if they were involved in Moffat's era, but I do know that a lot of the reoccurring writers stuck around. That was not the case with Chibnall's era. One of the things that he went is he found people outside of sci-fi that specifically whatever the message of the week was, he got a writer who specialized in that. And in some ways, that brought off some brilliant things. I think of an episode like Rosa. They got Rosa Parks. Like, that time period, that look was beautiful. They captured her character amazingly well. The sci-fi in that plot was insulting. The idea that in the far-flung future, when we've got time travel and we're fighting alien races and all that, that somebody is a white supremacist that has decided that they wouldn't go to prison for being a serial killer if segregation ever happened, so they went back in time to stop her from sitting on a bus, and if she never sat in the bus, that centuries later there would still be segregation, that no other person would have stood up in all that time, and that was his the plot. I think, if I were trying to write that, I probably would have just had the crew lands there, they somehow accidentally bump events, and now they got to set them back straight so that she does sit down on that bus so it doesn't set mankind back. It could have been a good plot. It certainly, or aliens are invading and they got to fix that so it doesn't mess up history, something, but the plot that they had, really weak. But they handled the historical characters very well. Other episodes, they did not. But I'm not going to focus a whole lot on Chibnall. The big crutch of it, though, is it went from passable episodes, a few episodes that I actually enjoyed, to most of the episodes I did not like, to then the ending of the second season. Now they introduced a master that I absolutely adored, and then the final battle between the Doctor and the Master, and they had the Timeless Child. And that basically destroyed all of classic Who canon, a lot of new Who canon, especially everything that Moffat did, kind of just went out the window with that. that's kind of hard to do with Doctor Who. Doctor Who is a very, very flexible when it comes to canon. It's very wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey, lots of sci-fi jargon that you can just chalk things up to and throw it. You have to really try hard and write a script that specifically goes all of these 100% concrete, in stone things that we know about the Doctor. They're not true. They're not only not true, but like the whole show this whole time has been a lie. And I think they thought it was a really clever story. It did not sit well with fans. It did not sit well with me. I haven't watched the special that came out after it. That's the first time I didn't watch something that was new Doctor Who. Not because I'm really boycotting. I just didn't have an interest. And that's just kind of the state of the show. The ratings have gone way down. Even if you're a fan of it, you have to recognize the ratings have gone down. And like I said, I came into it as somebody who wanted this to succeed. I gave it its fair chance. I watched up to that, and then that was just when I was like, no, I'm sorry. I'm off this train. I can do a lot. What Big Finish is doing, 100 times better. That's where I'm investing my Doctor Who dollars, is Big Finish. So how do they appease that? How do they fix this rift in the fandom? Well, Russell T Davies is the one who brought Doctor Who back, because Doctor Who had previously reached a point where it had to go off the air because the ratings were so low that the show had kind of run its course. Russell T Davies brought it back successfully, and Russell T Davies is someone who is, as the buzzword is woke. He is somebody who's very progressive, and yet he is a sci-fi writer and a Doctor Who fan first. And so, while he does have some messaging in his stuff, he is very much appreciative of Doctor Who and respectful of Doctor Who as a property. And so it's all about the Doctor first, the story first, and the messaging second, which Doctor Who has always had messaging, just like Star Trek has always had messaging. These shows have always had messaging, and it's just how they go about it, how they sacrifice a story for that messaging that frustrates people. Not everybody. Some people are just anti the messaging, but this is kind of the move that they were in. They were stuck. There was a big cry that they wanted the next director to be female. They wanted the next Doctor to be female. They've gone down a certain route, and if they course correct, a lot of people are going to want to cancel them over that. This messaging crowd is going to want to cancel them for that. However, if they continue on with what they're doing, they got no viewership. So what are they going to do? Russell T Davies is someone who, except for the people who are like, oh no, classic Who is the only good Who, or just the first 4 Doctors are the only good Doctors. There are definitely those camps of the fandom. But this is like, how to explain it? This is if they gave Jon Favreau or Dave Filoni head of Lucasfilm. This is giving somebody who has already proven that he can make something that the majority of people in the fandom like. Both the people who like the new stuff and the people who don't. Generally, most of them like this individual's body of work. And this is kind of like if instead of announcing giving 5 more years of Kurtzman to Trek, bringing back the showrunners from like the Next Generation era. That's basically what they did. And not bringing back necessarily somebody from like Voyager or Enterprise, which and Deep Space Nine, which are kind of like, people are mixed on some of those, but actually like bring back like the dream team of the best of the next generation, saying this is who it's going to be. And that's what Russell T Davies is. Now, I say this as someone who is not a huge Russell T Davies fan. I'm a Moffat fan. Of New Who, I like Moffat's era the best. I think David Tennant is a bigger part of what made that show great during Russell T Davies' era. I'm a person, I look at the cringe-worthy, like, I'm embarrassed to show my friends this episode, and say, yeah, I'm into Doctor Who type episodes. And there are much more of those during Russell T Davies' years, especially like in the first couple years. In fact, I know a lot of people who tried to get into Doctor Who. They watched the first few episodes of the Ninth Doctor, and there are some really wonky, campy stuff that would not fly today. Stuff that if you put Chris Chibnall's name on it now, with how everybody feels about him, like, they would rip those things to shreds. There's literally one where a guy's in love with a woman who gets turned into a brick, and at the end they have their happy ending where they're living married together, and then they imply some weird stuff. Yeah, that's in Russell T Davies' era. You have the big bad, Chris Chibnall has, like, Chimshaw, the guy that's got teeth all over his face, and that's corny, and it's dumb, and it wasn't a good character to sink a whole season around. But then you have the Slureen in Russell T Davies area that are like the people that wear human suits, but because there's a gas difference or something, it makes them fart a lot. So it's a bunch of fat actors farting that are really supposedly aliens in human bodysuits. Not the greatest stuff. He also is somebody who is very progressive. And I look at his first run, and I go, Chris Chibnall has blown the door wide open. He's gone far way out there. So Russell T Davies can really ring it back, and he can still be considered, tame in comparison. So he might have felt more restrained before. He's going to feel more bold now. Now, all that said, I think anything he produces is going to have respect and reverence for Doctor Who and what's come before. I don't really think he's going to touch the Timeless Child. I'm curious to see if Chris Chibnall will explain exactly what he means by that. Because I know a lot of defenders of the Timeless Child plot. They have all sorts of theories that are brilliant and amazing, and I listen to some of them like, you know what, that wouldn't be so bad. That'd bring me back. I highly doubt that's the message. I think that they're putting more thought into it than the showrunner is. Just because of other mistakes and other things that the show has done. But Russell T Davies coming back, that is just such an amazing thing. Even though he's not my favorite showrunner, he's not a bad showrunner. And he's bringing with him back Bad Wolf. So they're, from Doctor Who on, they've only gotten bigger and better. They are like the best in special effects over across the pond there, England and Britain and all that area, and the UK. Their shows that they're on have high budget. So this makes me think that the BBC is going to throw in a hunky chunk of cash. Now, something else, though, that I'm just musing at, and I'm thinking, there's a good possibility that they have brought him back because his run is going to coincide with the 60th. And he had always said he wouldn't come back to Doctor Who. He got burnt out on the show. It was stressful. It was hard on him. So, and of course, arguments with the BBC and all that, so that they had to back up a money truck to him. But I imagine they also gave him a limited time window. I don't think he was going to agree to come back and do it for 5 years again. I imagine he's going to do it for somewhere from 1 to 3 years. Just one doctor. I imagine that he is going to do a big 60th and then hand it over to somebody else. So he's kind of the stopgap. They didn't know who they could have taken on, and maybe he will have a future showrunner, like kind of he did with Moffat. He might have a future showrunner kind of working under his belt with him, kind of prepping him. So there might be some of this Russell T Davies era, second era, that is actually going to be a different showrunner, kind of shadowing under him, and be more of them getting ready to take over the reins. That's just kind of my idea, because the BBC doesn't have somebody. They don't have somebody who is capable, British, that's sci-fi and run a show this big. There are a lot of great writers over there and different ones, but showrunners is a much smaller pool, and showrunners who also do sci-fi, outside of Doctor Who, there's not a whole lot of sci-fi going on over there. So it's a very, very constrained thing. And so I could definitely see that they've backed up the money truck for him to kind of bring the franchise back before they try again with a new person. And so I could definitely see him doing a short stint of bringing something back. But this is nothing but good news, because the fact that they've done this is an indication from the BBC that they understand that there's something wrong. We see a lot of these studios putting their heads in the sand, going, it's fine, staying the course. Some of them, have the money and power, like Disney with Star Wars, that in another 10 years, all the people watching the stuff they're putting out now that everybody's complaining about, they're going to be the 20-year-olds with disposable income. All these 15, they're going to be the 25-year-olds that have jobs, that have money to buy everything. Disney can wait that out. CBS, Viacom, they have Star Trek. They're putting out multiple shows, which means multiple merchandising, licensing. And as long as Trek fans are buying those shirts, buying that stuff, the ships, the whatever, Trek is making money. And it's supporting a streaming service. And all the people who are like, well, I already have the streaming service, so I'm going to hate watch. Guess what? Those are giving them numbers. As far as they're concerned, it's making money. But Doctor Who is not making money. Doctor Who is on a thing that over there is government provided. It's taxed. People are trying to fight it because they're tired of they're paying for this forcibly, so to speak. It doesn't have the numbers, and it's an expensive show to make. And so the fact that they're acknowledging that in any way, that they're not staying the course, like everyone suspected that it was going to be a female director. Chibnall was saying that. Actors were saying that, oh, it truly won't, a female doctor was a step in the right direction. But so the fact that they recognize that, and you know what? Female director could be great. Another female doctor could be good. But the writing's got to be there. And it's got to be somebody from a sci-fi background. Somebody who understands Doctor Who and the stories. And so that's just kind of my little thing on there. But it's, everyone's going, victory! But we do have to wait and see. But it is definitely a step in the right direction. And if more than anything, it is something to show that the studio is recognizing that there is something to fix. Next one. The Mario voice cast. Now, I have another podcast planned that's going to talk about the Nintendo Direct along with the PlayStation and Xbox conferences as well. I was waiting for the Smash Brothers one to come out. It's come out, but I figured this is going to kind of take away from that, so I'm going to do it on its own thing. The Mario movie voice cast. This is being done by Illumination. Now, everybody knows, Illumination movies, they always get the celebrity voice cast and stuff. And so it should be no surprise that that was going to happen with Mario 2. But it's a very strange voice cast. Some of these are right on. Some of them are kind of odd and out there. Chris Pratt is Mario because, as Miyamoto says, he's so cool. I don't get this casting. This is Chris Pratt, to his credit, is a big Mario fan, and he's talked about how much he wants to do the character justice. There is nothing Chris Pratt has ever done that has made me think he could pull off Mario. Say what you will about the previous Mario movie, at least the guy was kind of a Mario stereotype. Bob Hoskins, it worked. Chris Pratt just doesn't, if it's just Chris Pratt's voice coming out of Mario, that is not Mario. But I'm more worried it's going to be Chris Pratt doing a very cringy, "It's me, a Mario." See, I can do that. Everybody can do, "It's me, a Mario." But if you try to do a whole movie with me talking like this, it's going to sound silly. It's going to sound bad. So I don't think that's what he's going to do. But maybe he's going to change his voice from his regular voice to something else. I don't know. I don't want to hear Star-Lord either. Mario's going to be there with Yoshi, and he's going to have a clicker. Click, 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 click. Here, Yoshi. Click, 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 like he does with Blue. I don't know. And maybe there'll be some jokes like that because it is Illumination. So this is the one. Charles Martinet is going to do cameos in the movie. He's been the voice of Mario. Now with Sonic, see, a similar thing happened with Sonic. However, Sonic changes his voice actor about every 5 years. And so Sonic doesn't have a single iconic voice. And even because it's a specific accent, kind of a stereotypical accent, even people who, other actors or different things who have played him in the cartoons, they all kind of sound the same. They all kind of have a voice. It's the Mario Brothers, That kind of makes Mario. I was okay with the rest of the voice cast being special, but that's the one thing. However, Charles does Mario dialogue, and he can do that voice in brief little interviews. But could he do full dialogue? Mario doesn't. He's never had to do that. So his voice might also not work for full dialogue. That may be why he doesn't get the part, because he works for a little wahoo and what and "It's me, Mario." But hey, Bowser, he can do those things, but could he say dialogue in that voice? Maybe he can't. Maybe he would sound just as cringy and weird as the rest of us trying to say complete sentences in that voice. So that might be why they chose not to go with him. Now, he's doing cameos. He voices a lot of characters in the Mario universe, and one of them is Wario, and Wario wasn't given a voice. And I think Wario is going to be in the movie. Why do I think Wario is going to be in the movie? Because they seem to be trying to capture every stage of Mario. And Wario is a big adversary to Mario. So, and we'll get to that in a moment with some of these other characters. First, Peach, Anna Taylor-Joy. I don't really know her, but from what I've listened to a few voice clips and stuff, I think she could do an amazing Peach. Luigi was Charles Day from Always Sunny in Philadelphia. I hadn't watched the show, so I don't really have a comment on him. I know a lot of people were really wigged out by that one. Bowser is Jack Black. This is one that at first I'm like, you gotta be freaking kidding me. But the more I thought about it, the more I was like, this is actually probably a good decision. One that I don't see a lot of people talk about is Michael Keegan being Toad. And there's a bit he does on Whose Line Is It Anyways that sounds like Toad. And I don't know if it's a reference to Toad, but it sounds like Toad, and I could totally see him doing. He has one of his bits has the high-pitched like Toad in the game, and I could totally see him doing that voice in this. So when they said him, I'm like, oh, that's a shoo-in. Most people go, well, that's kind of a weird. I'm like, no, to me, that's good casting. That's casting a famous person good. Same with the next one. Donkey Kong is Seth Rogen. This is just funny. That's just funny. But that also brings in Donkey Kong's going to be in this. Mario's original adversary is going to be in this one. But not just Donkey Kong, Cranky Kong, which, there's always been that theory that Cranky Kong is the actual Donkey Kong in the original Donkey Kong game that Mario captures and all that. And then he has Donkey Kong Jr., who is Donkey Kong's, of the Donkey Kong Country games, dad. So, he's really Donkey Kong the third, is what they try to put out there. So, but he's Fred Armisen. Don't really know. See, these next ones are where you're getting into more voice actors. Kremik is Kevin Michael Richardson. And then Foreman Spike is Sebastian Maniscalco. I'm not sure about that, but Foreman Spike. So this is, of course, from a Mario game, way before on the NES, like all of a sudden it's a Wrecking Crew, I think is what the fact that stuff like that is getting referenced means that they're really going to go, like, I imagine we're going to get a Mario Tennis or a Mario Kart, reference. The best thing I've liked out of this whole announcement was all the Twitter things, just announcing on the games that Sonic the Hedgehog will be cameoing as Vin Diesel. Oh my god, that would be funny. I would want him to be recast for this movie, not the movie Sonic movie voice, not his game voice. I would want Sonic the Hedgehog to show up and be Vin. That would be funny. I'm kind of at a point where it's like, okay, if Chris Pratt is Mario, go wild with it. Go wild with it. Make it a comedy. Before, I wanted it to be like Illumination level animation. I like the Illumination movies, but just make it a run-of-the-mill, cookie-cutter, Mario saves the princess, everyday story, and make it something that's very faithful and cool, but nothing necessarily spectacular. They got this cast. I want to see some Lego movie type stuff. I want to see them be very self-aware, very funny, because when you've got a cast like this, I don't think you can play Chris Pratt Mario as a straight run-of-the-mill Mario adventure. It's not going to work. So make it like the Lego Batman movie. Make it, make it self-aware. Make it very ridiculous. That's what I hope. But why this and not that? Well, it's because Chris Pratt puts people in seats. People are going to go who have no interest in video games, have no interest in Mario, are going to go see this because it's a funny animated movie with Chris Pratt in it. And they're going to expect it to be like every other Illumination type or DreamWorks or all these movies that do this kind of thing, where it's a bunch of adult jokes and a bunch of famous actors. So the parents are going for all the inside jokes that have to do about the actors referencing their other movies and all that kind of stuff. That's what's going to entertain them, while the fart humor is going to be what entertains all the kids, the Looney Tune and fart humor. That's what this is going to be. Okay, last item on my thing. Craig Skistimas abruptly announced that he was leaving the video game streaming coverage, all that. So who is Craig Skistimas? Well, he is the founder of Screw Attack, which was primarily a podcast starting in 2006, which was the Side Scrollers podcast. This podcast went on for about a decade. And it was my first podcast, my favorite podcast of all time. And he went on from that, and then he sold to Fullscreen, who sold to Warner Media, who sold to AT&T, who merged them with Rooster Teeth, who made decisions that the only show that they cared about was Death Battle. and eventually kind of merged him out. He went off on his own with Game Attack with a couple of other guys, and they did the Twitch streaming, really ground hard. They had a podcast, Try Hard, but that grind got to be too much for him, so he left Game Attack, and then he started up his own channel. And he did a podcast called the Craig Skits podcast, where he just interviewed people that he'd worked with over the years. And then he started doing a lot of retro video game playing and streaming. And then he did with his brother, Weekdays with Craig and Brad. And he was doing that, and he was doing his retro streaming. And he had this thing that when he turned 40, he was going to be... he wasn't going to do this kind of content. Like, he had always said, I don't want to be one of those guys that like you see on Spike TV or whatever that's acting like he's the cool dude, bro, but he's old. He remembers as a kid thinking that, and so he was going to quit. And thankfully, the fans had convinced him not to. However, he'd already kind of put feelers out there, started a LinkedIn and all that, looking for other kind of work, and although he can't reveal due to NDA what it is, he got a job that he couldn't refuse. Completely different industry, but he was going to be like a head of content or whatever. So, I got a feeling it's probably sports, but because he also had a sports career. He started out at slam ball. Yeah, it's the basketball on trampoline sport that was, popular for a hot minute in the late 90s, early 2000s. But just looking back at some of the stuff that he did, like some of the shows that Screw Attack was this amazing company, because this started at the time when YouTube first started. But YouTube wasn't what it is now. It wasn't a place to go and get monetized. It wasn't a place to be a creator and put out a ton of content, funny little music videos, and little animations and little 5-minute or less videos was what was king on YouTube at the time. Cat videos, stuff going viral. He wasn't doing that. He was doing podcasts, and he was doing top 10s. And then they started doing the clip of the week, which were little skits. A lot of times they would take like a commercial or something and kind of video game it up and redo it. Some hilarious ones. I really love... like they did like the animal donations, like to poor dogs or something like that. They did as one of the Lauren. She dressed up as Nurse Joy, and they did for battered, injured Pokemon infomercial. They've done stuff like that. They did the Nintendo We Would Like to Play commercial, but they did it as them coming in and as like assassins taking people out for pirating Nintendo games. So, they just did a lot of fun, corny clips, and they were putting out one a week, and they did this for years. And so essentially, they came up with a slogan, a video every day. So they're putting out 7 videos or more a week. And so they had one, which was going to be this high production sort of, we're going to come up with a story, a plot, and film out this video. And somebody would get that assignment, and he had to use all the staff who were working on other videos and pull them away from that and get them to do that. And so because they were so rushed, a lot of them were super corny, super cheesy, but just really it's hard news. 5 days a week, a news video 5 days a week. They would report the news, and they do it with snarky banter of what was happening in video game weeks. One of their favorite things I liked was the best ever and the worst ever, and this is where they just randomly pull like 3 or 4 staff members and go, "Hey, what's the best Pokemon ever?" And they would give, "Oh, well, it's this," and it would be like some weird reason, like somebody came up with Rattata. Nick Kramer, he came up with Rattata, and it really he gave a good reason. And then they'd have alternatively, they'd have the worst ever, and like, "Oh, hey, what's the worst ever controller?" Somebody says the Dreamcast, because the cord is at the pointing the wrong way from the controller, which funny grape on the just different takes on all that kind of stuff. Real fun. They blew up because of their top tens though, and some really epic bold top tens. And then they truly blew up when Death Battle came out. And I'm a big Death Battle fan. But if I had to pick a favorite show of theirs, it was Side Scrollers. This was the most entertaining 30 to 45, actually an hour to an hour and 15 of your week, video game week. And they talked video games, but they talked video game news, but they also talked about just random, they had the Side Scrollers news desk. And this is when they would pick 3 random stories, most of them out of Florida. If they were really good, they came from Florida, of just crazy things. Like the guy that was scared by a snake, so he took a flamethrower to it, set the snake on fire, and the snake ran into his trailer and set his trailer on fire. Stuff like that. Just would blow my mind away. And Craig was so good. He's done so many amazing things. He's held his own video game convention, SGC. Really great, amazing memories from there. And I'm happy to see that he's got, something good set up for his next stage of life, but a little bittersweet to see him leaving the space. If you'd like to go check out, most of his stuff can no longer be found on the internet. Unfortunately, AT&T and its infinite wisdom pulled all that stuff. Warner Media, Rooster Teeth, I don't know who was responsible for it, but between all those merging, one of them decided, no, Death Battle's the value. All those other videos are cluttering up the YouTube channel. Pull them. Do they make like a ScrewTech Vault channel so people can go, but no. But if you go down to the Rooster Teeth app or the Rooster Teeth website and look up stuff like Side Scrollers, Clip of the Week, all those kind of things, they will show up on there. And most of them are still there. Not all of them. Some of them have been censored. But most of them are still there. Just check it out. It's going to give you some early 2000s nostalgia. Just some fun stuff. And it's just guys that are now our age. So, they were our age then. And they're just having fun. And it was just such a fun website. And what's funny is how many people are big in the industry got their start with that. People like AVGN, the Angry Video Game Nerd. People like Matt Pat over at Game Theory, Film Theory, Food Theory. You got Andre, the Black Nerd Comedy. You've got Movie Bob. You've got other people that were kind of associated, like The Completionist and Game Grumps. And these different ones that started from that culture that have blown up, that are huge channels. And Greg Skits was a big part of that. And so, backwards hat, tip off to you, Craig. Much appreciated. And, you're probably never going to see this, but Craig shaped... I listen to over 50 podcasts actively right now. That's because of Side Scrollers. That got me into podcasting. That got me into thinking, when he ended that podcast and said, okay, we're going to have the Death Battle cast, and we're going to have, these other podcasts, that got me, okay, I got to find that. But none of them were quite Side Scrollers. So I was looking for that. I started watching the Rooster Teeth podcast. I started doing that. And then I got into, what other things do I like? And so I got open to trying new podcasts. And I had some early ones like the Salty Nerd podcast. He was somebody I was interacting with on Twitter and said, hey, I got a podcast. Checked it out. He introduced me to Ro. Ro introduced me to Coruscant Radio Underground. And then all of a sudden, before I knew it, I had all these Red 5 Network podcasts in my and then I'm like, well, I like these Star Wars ones. Is there a Star Trek? Well, I'm listening to Glorious Experts, and I'm Find Gate World for Stargate, and all of a sudden, I got just podcast out the podcast. I'm listening to Segavits and Megavisions and Dreamcast Junkyard and Friend Code and all, just tons of podcasts about video games, about sci-fi and movies and just everything under the sun. And really, Craig opened me to that. He also, when it comes to my video game choices, like as I mentioned, I watched The Completionist, I watched Game Theory, I watched Death Battle. All that stuff came out of what Craig Skips built. And even the stuff that he didn't build, like Red versus Blue Rooster Teeth, he's the one that introduced me to Rooster Teeth. So like all that Red versus Blue and stuff like that, yes, that stuff came before him, but he's the one that introduced me to it. So big effect on my nerddom and everything for me. So once again, backwards hat tipped off to you. And with that, I'll leave you. Like I said, future random thoughts. I'm going to be discussing all the recent video game conferences. I'm going to have a few others that I'm going to do, but that will probably be my next one. All right, hope everybody's having a good day, and I'll catch you in the next video.